Ladies and gentlemen, we do have some more big stadium news coming out of the state of Queensland. Barlow Park in Cairns, the primary rectangular sporting venue in the city of Cairns, due to get a big redevelopment in the lead up to the 2032 Brisbane Olympic Games. The stadium is getting a $91 million upgrade, which will see a new Western Grandstand built to boost the capacity for the soccer events at the Olympic Games up to around 20,000. Now, this project being funded by the joint allocation from both the Australian and Queensland governments, where they've put together around $1.87 billion in the minor venues program in terms of upgrading and procuring stadiums for the 2032 Olympic Games. Of course, those games primarily being held in the city of Brisbane, but often with these soccer events, you do see the preliminaries and the lead-up events being held in different cities around the country. At this stage, games are slated for Townsville, Melbourne, Sydney, Cairns, possibly Gold Coast, and maybe a few other cities, as well as obviously Brisbane. And as part of that, Barlow Park will be getting a big upgrade. Now, the 1,700 seat Western stand that currently exists at the stadium is going to get demolished, and they are going to be building a new 3,500 seat stand on that side of the ground. It is going to have double the seating in that stand compared to the current stand. They are also going to be adding around 1,500 retractable seats for use over the athletics track that does run around the outside of the stadium. They are saying for the soccer events, they are going to bring in another 15,000 temporary seats, and the temporary capacity of that ground at the time of the 2032 Olympic Games will be around 20,000. Now, we do have a couple of renderings for this design. You can see here a pretty basic looking stand. You do have a few commentary boxes, media boxes. You do have a small overhang. It doesn't quite reach each side of the stand, but it will provide some level of protection from the elements. You do have a 2-deck grandstand, a small upper deck. It is a pretty modern design, but obviously with that running track around the outside of the ground, you don't really have that snug, sort of compact modern design that you do see in a lot of other stadiums. However, that is to be expected with this stadium. There is no primary tenant of this ground in terms of a pro sports team in the city of Cairns. Currently, the only pro sports team in Cairns is, of course, the Cairns Taipans in the National Basketball League. They do obviously play in an indoor arena, so obviously the outdoor stadium not relevant to the Taipans. But it does raise the question with this upgrade whether Cairns could potentially lure a professional sporting franchise into the city. Obviously, there has been some talk about an AFL team to be located in Cairns. I don't really think that is a major shot, but it is possibly better than some of the other options that have been floated. People have talked about potentially a joint Northern Territory / Northern Queensland, sort of Northern Australia branded team. Personally, I don't like the idea. I do think if a team is going to be playing in Cairns, it should represent North Queensland. But it does raise the question in terms of an NRL or A-League soccer team playing out of this upgraded Barlow Park. Any AFL team, if it did end up coming into Cairns in the future, it would be playing at Cazaly Stadium or an entirely new stadium. Obviously, Barlow Park set up for rectangular sport. And the Cairns expansion market has sort of been talked about loosely with the NRL. There has been talk about a team with an identity of Papua New Guinea or the Pacific Islands sort of playing out of Cairns in Australia as their home ground and just sort of using that overseas identity. Obviously, the issue with that market is you do already have the North Queensland Cowboys playing in Townsville, which is around 3 or 4 hours drive away. Not everyone in Cairns necessarily goes for the Cowboys because of the rivalry you do have between Cairns and Townsville. The Cowboys don't play any home games in Cairns. Occasionally they do play a trial game in Cairns, either as the away team or the home team. But for all intents and purposes, the Cowboys are a Townsville team, which does mean Cairns is an option or an expansion team. Still a lot of talk around Papua New Guinea. However, the narrative seems to have pivoted in recent years towards more of that PNG team actually being located and playing in Papua New Guinea rather than in Australia, which I think is a good move. If you're going to do it, you may as well do it that way. But certainly another Queensland team would be on the agenda if the NRL is going to go to 20 teams. I think you lock in, obviously, the Perth/Western Bears for the 18th team. And then there's 5 or 6 other options in terms of 19 and 20. You'd be looking at Adelaide. You would be looking at maybe Toowoomba or Ipswich. You would be looking at another Brisbane team, maybe another New Zealand team. Cairns definitely, or a PNG and Pacific team. They'd all be on the table in terms of options for the NRL. If we talk about the A-League, they have tried to put a team in North Queensland before. It was the North Queensland Fury. Only lasted around 2 or 3 years. They did play out of the old stadium in Townsville. It was very decrepit. It was a long way out of the city. But they really struggled to draw crowds in terms of getting people through the gates for that A-League team. And given the state of Queensland Country Bank Stadium, I think that is a lot more attractive for any expansion team. If the A-League does look at going back into North Queensland, I think it would be another team in Townsville playing at QCB Stadium. It is a lot more modern. It is located right in the city centre, and it just ticks a lot more boxes than either Cairns or that old stadium. Another issue when you look at Cairns is the population. It is smaller than Townsville, so Townsville is going to have the first rights on any de facto North Queensland team, you would think, with the exception probably of the AFL, given Aussie rules football is slightly more popular in Cairns than it is in Townsville. In terms of the A-League for expansion opportunities, I think they look at Wollongong, I think they look at Tasmania and definitely Canberra before another North Queensland team, but maybe in around 10-15 years there might be another option with A-League expansion, but I think most likely, as I said, they do go to Townsville and QCB Stadium for that team. And if we talk about rugby union for a second, obviously that is off the table. Australia is struggling to maintain its existing Super Rugby teams, so certainly expansion not on the agenda for rugby union. So we will wait and see what happens with this stadium. 91 million, a lot of money to spend on a temporary stadium that will have limited use outside of local sport after the Olympics. But I think Cairns is now on the radar for the A-League and the NRL as a expansion license. That is all we're going to have time for today, guys. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more.